Hey, y'all, welcome to Geek Freaks. I am Frank, and I'm joined by Scott today.
Hey, what's up, nerds?
Been a while since we had Scott on, and you guys have been insulted by him calling you a nerd again, right off the bat. What have you been up to lately?
I'm back, bitches. Not too much. Moved about a month ago into a new apartment.
Yeah,
Uh, which if you're watching the video, you can see my kitchen now.
yeah, nice kitchen.
Because that's
You've been
that's
gaming
where
like a
my
loon lately, dude. You've been playing so many games.
yeah, so an old MMO I played Life is Feudal, came back on
That's one of your favorites, yeah.
under a new company. So I dumped a bunch of time into that. And then Starfield happened.
Then
And
Starfield. I like how it's not even like a game came out, then Starfield happened.
yeah, Starfield
The event.
happened. For better or worse. I mean, it is a landmark in gaming for right now.
Yeah, and we're gonna be talking about it a lot at the end. It is definitely I haven't had a game like pull me as much as this one is in a while, so it's kind of nice to have that kind of. Oh, I need to get it back on Starfield. I got to pirate around a little bit more, stuff like that. Let's go ahead and do our question out of the geek box here. This is oh my god, this is so perfect for you. Have you memorized any quotes from fantasy books? There you go for the folks at home.
Memorized quotes from fantasy books.
Come on, I know you got some.
So one that I could actually benefit from because I have the problem, but in the Sword of Truth series, um, one of the kind of themes, a quote that shows up a number of times is think of the solution, not the problem.
Oh, okay, yeah, keep your like kind of a keep a focus on the good side
Well,
over here.
and I know that's not very like fantastical, like but it's like a life lesson. I was like, you know what? I like
Yeah,
this because when something happens, right? When something bad happens, you have a tendency to focus on the bad thing that happened and be upset about what happened and complain about what happened when you know the people that they like rise to leadership, in the moment, people that take charge, they've already moved past what happened
yeah.
and into what needs to happen now. And I think that's I don't know, it's just always stuck with me. It's something that I can improve on, because I have a tendency to just like focus on problems instead of solutions to the problems.
Good on you for like learning a lesson from your books. Like I don't really do that very often. So I mean, I can't think of the exact quote, but I used to know it, and it was when Tyrion was, I'm sorry, when Catelyn was accusing Tyrion in the tavern of attacking Bran, and pushing him out the window. So I used to remember that quote, and it was like, oh man, it was because it was such a. I think it was like the first major twist in the Game of Thrones or the Song of Ice and Fire series, and so I used to remember that one, but I don't remember it anymore. That was I think that was the one I probably pulled the most quotes from, but they were just like, it's still so badass. Not that I'm learning anything. Like what? Accuse random
It's
people in
fine.
a bar?
I drink and I know things.
Okay, yeah. If that's actually in the book, I definitely say that more than
I'm
I should.
pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure
Okay,
it
then
is
boom.
actually.
I know that quote and I use it often and I kind of live by it. So
Yeah,
that works out well.
a lot of that witty Tyrion banter is, I mean, it's in the books.
Yeah, yeah. It's a shame because right now in the books, Tyrion, I feel is. I mean, he does it in the show too, but he's so off his mark right now with the whole. He's like in the circus thing right now, and it's a shame because he's such a better character than that. So I'm hoping that George R. R. Martin saves him pretty soon.
Yeah, I feel like Tyrion's one of those characters that he maybe couldn't bring himself to get rid of, or has something in mind for him later on.
Hmm.
But yeah, like he's been taken so far out of his element. And Tyrion is such a, just, I don't know, a force,
Oh yeah,
like
for
just
sure.
for entertainment value, like he's such a great character, that I feel like it's another one of those George R. R. Martin doesn't know what to do with him. He just
Yeah.
knows he doesn't want to get rid of him. You know?
He's talked about how, and it's, you see it in the show as well, but Marine is kind of a mistake. He's talked about that, where it's like, well, I created Marine to put Daenerys on ice for a little bit while I finished things up in Westeros so that I can bring her back, but I needed a place for her to stay for a little bit. So like, and that's exactly where Tyrion's at right now in the books. So you feel like, man, everybody who goes to Marine is just on pause and dealing with adventures that won't matter in the end. Like, I think Tyrion, I think everybody who reads the books or knows the shows knows that Tyrion is actually the rightful, is the best leader for Westeros. And they really hammer that home with like how much he's able to make the sewer system run well and shit like that. And so when he's sitting there and he's like dealing with a circus and he's got, I think it's Jorah Mormont that's with him, who's just drunk and waiting to die, and it's, the story sucks so bad right now for him.
Oh
You
yeah.
know?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it, which is so weird that the show ends up picking Bran because it's obvious that the reason no one respects Tyrion is because he's a dwarf. You know,
Right.
like that's it. It has nothing to do with the fact that yeah, he is a good leader. He could be a great leader for Westeros, but no one's going to allow that to happen because of his physical capabilities, which is so weird because then they
Yeah.
let Bran, the crippled kid, be king, which I think we can all agree felt weird. Um,
Yeah, it really didn't have any, to me it didn't make any sense. Like his abilities don't, I don't think really help him much as a king either.
yeah, no, not really. Um, but yeah, what he called it was the Milanese knot, which it was a
Yeah.
knot he couldn't figure out how to, untie. When you have like strings that get all knotted together, right? And you can't pull them apart. And that's how I felt because yeah, he stuck her there to just kind of keep her there for a little bit, like you say, put her on ice, and then couldn't come up with a reason why she would leave.
Yeah, it had
You
to
know?
collapse, which then makes us question her as a leader before we're supposed to question her as a leader, like we do later on, and we're supposed to later on, based off of what we've seen so far in the show. But yeah, it's I don't know, it's an interesting situation. Let us, boy, I like how we kind of got into this side conversation off of just looking for a
Immediately.
quote, but I loved it, because I haven't talked about Game of Thrones in a bit, and it's something I really love. So, all right, let's get into the news. Let's dive right into it, guys. Let's talk about that Aquaman 2 trailer. You and me both watched it again, refreshed ourselves. What did you think about this? Is this gonna be a good send off for this era of DC?
So I think that the first Aquaman kind of carried the franchise for a little while.
Yeah,
I know there's lots of people who, there's the Snyder Bros out there,
of
and they're
course.
gonna hate me, but you know what? Justice League in all of its forms was not great.
I agree.
The Snyder cut, the original cut, I think they're all bad. um, and I think Aquaman came and it was a surprise because who expects anything out of Aquaman? I mean, I'm sure
Right.
comic book, readers do, like Aquaman in the comics compared to what, people like me have seen in old TV shows and things. Aquaman was like irrelevant,
Yeah, he's
even
he's
in
usually the punching bag in
Smallville.
a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah, even in Smallville, like they tried to make him cool. It didn't quite work.
Yeah.
And it's like Aquaman, why does Aquaman even need a movie? Uh, but I was pleasantly surprised. I think it's one of the best DC movies in this era, not
I
going
have to
back
agree
to
with you.
old
Yeah.
Batman's,
Even the
but as
directing
far
is
as
better a little bit too, and everything. Yeah.
yeah, and it doesn't take itself super seriously.
Yeah.
Jason Momoa comes into it very almost tongue in cheek about just the king of Atlantis who does not want to be king. He's dragged
Hmm.
kicking and screaming into this, and he's got that kind of sarcastic wittiness, and not taking things as seriously as Batman and Superman, which is what a lot of us have come to love about the Marvel movies.
True.
There's a
Yeah.
Marvel element to the Aquaman series, and coming off of the Flash, which was eh,
Yeah.
and Black Adam, which of course I kind of liked, but it flopped,
It
which
flopped
I
pretty hard. Yeah.
get. Um, I think Aquaman 2 is once again going to carry the franchise.
You
personally.
made a really good point there. He's lighthearted, and I think one of the problems that we're having with the Marvel universe is we have lighthearted characters, which we do enjoy. Star Lord's probably the first pioneer of that. I mean, Iron Man a little bit. He was witty, but we're getting a problem with Marvel where the surroundings are also joking with them. And Aquaman does a really good job of like he's joking around, but yet he has the entire King of Atlantis. Like the Atlantis is depending on him, so everything
Yeah.
around him is serious, and he's not taking it seriously. So it makes his jokes bounce better. Like you always hear like the term like the straight man in comedies. It's they're supposed to be the Dwight Schrute. It's the person that things bounce off of, and so with Aquaman that exists, and even in the trailer you're seeing that immediately with like his brother's involved and his brother doesn't take him seriously. Nobody takes him seriously. That's why this works. I'm actually surprisingly looking forward to this. It has a lot of that grand epic adventure. The I like the scale, the battle for the throne, that kind of thing, and that's all here again, which is something that we saw in the first movie as well. I do also think it's funny that we have Amber Heard for maybe 3 frames, and they're scaling her back pretty hard.
Yeah, yeah, which we all know why that is. And you know, it's it's been rough for DC, as much as even so leading up to like the Ezra Miller stuff and the Amber Heard stuff,
Yeah,
you know, it was already a kind of a struggling franchise.
yeah.
Like it had its fans, don't get me wrong, and not every movie was a flop, but like, Shazam didn't do very well.
Yeah.
Batman versus Superman,
Oof.
Justice League, uh, you know, they were rough movies that were kind of getting to people. Aquaman and Wonder Woman, I think, are the
Oh, that's right. Wonder Woman's a good one
stars.
too.
Yeah, the first Wonder Woman, not so much
Yeah, yeah.
1984.
True, true.
Wonder Woman kind of kicks it off. And because like Man of Steel was it didn't you didn't know really it was going to be a DCEU, right? It was just, oh cool, a Superman
Yeah,
movie.
this is a new
Where I
Superman.
think Wonder Woman kind of starts the, oh okay, like this is turning into something more, and it's a good solid superhero movie with a great cast. And then you have some stuff in the middle, and Aquaman's good.
Yeah,
So it was already having problems, and then the Ezra Miller legal, I don't even know what you want to call that, which I
hmm
was super shocked that they were like, we're still going to do the Flash movie, which
I
really
know.
became a Batman movie, which I'm okay with.
Which I think is the reason it became a Batman movie is because they were trying to hide the Ezra Miller stuff a little bit. Like all the
Yeah,
marketing was so leaned on Michael Keaton that it was like, oh, that's right, Ezra's in this.
yeah, which I know some people, they really liked Ezra Miller's uh performance in the Flash. I thought it was okay. I did think he
Mhm.
did better than he did in Justice League. I did not like Justice League Ezra Miller Flash. I
Yeah,
thought it was just not well done. It was very much I run fast and trip over things was
yeah, almost
his
too
whole
goofy.
character
Like
arc. you
being
know?
witty and being a dork are two different things, and he was so close to the dork side of it that it was hard to enjoy him at all.
Yeah. And like he tried to banter with Batman at one point, and the Batman banter was also bad.
Yeah,
It was like two not witty nerds trying to be witty. It was just rough.
yeah,
So I mean, the Flash movie hasn't done great, but overall, I mean, I did watch it and I wasn't disappointed by it. Of course, and then yeah, going into Amber Heard, they're probably like, well, fuck, what do we do now? You know, so they're making hard choices, and these little bright lights. The Batman movie
Mhm.
with what
Robert
Pattinson,
Pattinson. Yeah.
Robert Pattinson. That one I also thought was good, although of course
But it's a whole
controversial.
else. The thing is it's Elseworld. So like all of that is disconnected, which I think is to DC's advantage. When they try
Oh
to
yeah,
connect
yeah.
them, it gets so sloppy. And even with the Joker movie too, with Joaquin Phoenix, don't let it touch anything else. Let it be its own thing. And if it fails, then it fails off on its own. But so far, those haven't failed. Like those are just fun one-offs.
Yeah, yeah, it's the most surprising ones. No one expected anything out of Wonder Woman, I don't think,
Right,
and
yeah,
it
and even
was
with like
great.
Suicide Squad, like everybody's like, "You're gonna bring back Suicide Squad? What? It's kind of a reboot, but not a reboot." And then all of a sudden, it's like, "Shit, that's the best thing you guys made in years." It was
Yeah,
crazy.
bring back Suicide Squad after the first Suicide Squad did not do well, and
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, okay, this like there. it really does seem like the things they don't try hard on are the things that are good.
Yeah, if
So
you guys
maybe that's
actually
what it
have you
is,
ever
Warner
watched Birds of
Brothers.
Prey?
Stop trying so hard.
Yeah, have
I
you ever seen
haven't. I
Birds of
haven't
Prey?
yet. No.
It's the weirdest thing. So I actually like went to the theaters and watched this thing, and I think I did. Yeah, and it's like somehow good. I'm like, how is this good? You guys put zero money into this, and I think it has their best fight scene in the Zack Snyderverse. It is crazy. Like she goes in with I think it was a police station with a bat and just like destroys the police station. It's dope, and I'm like, they didn't and that's a problem too DC's having right now because of the James Gunn stuff. I think they're not advertising their movies properly at all, and that too got like no advertisements. But it's actually if you guys
Yeah.
need a movie to watch, it's fun to watch.
Yeah. It just kind of appeared. It was like, oh, Birds of Prey. And I'm like, what even is this? I don't even know what this is. And I moved
Yeah,
on with my life immediately.
yeah, it's not bad. All right, let's talk about our next thing here. We have Tim Burton. It's coming out now because they're working on Beetlejuice 2, which I'm nervous. I love Beetlejuice, but so I'm nervous about the sequel. But it came out today. The cinematographer is talking about how Tim Burton's prioritizing in-camera effects, basically not using CGI. And I didn't think about how many special effects are in the first movie, but there's quite a bit, huh?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're talking about this is a time period with, when you're coming off of Star Wars and Indiana Jones and
Yeah,
Tim Burton's really getting into the world, the film world, and it's a lot of practical effects. It's kind of like a practical effects golden age, really. That late
yeah,
'80s,
that's
early
true.
'90s kind of time period. Um, but I think it'll be interesting to see if it has the same effect now that it
Yeah.
did then. I mean, you go back, you look at if you can, if you find like an original Star Wars,
Mm.
before the remastered edition and special edition and all that, you find some original Star Wars and it doesn't hold up the best. You know what I'm saying? Like it
No,
was
it
great
looks
for the
pretty
time,
bad. Yeah, yeah, but the
but yeah,
lightsabers look
now you're looking
terrible.
at it like, oh well, I mean, some CGI, we could make that look a little better.
Yeah.
Um, you
And
know,
then if you look at Beetlejuice too, like I was just surprised the fact that it had so many special effects. I didn't think about it, and I think it's because when I think of Beetlejuice, I think of Michael Keaton's great acting, their performance, the story was fun, a whole new world. But then when you think about like, yeah, they had to do the stretchy face special, like so many effects in that movie, and it added to the whimsy. It's like this macabre whimsy mix. We see it with Adam's Family a little bit. Um, I don't know if that'll hold up with today's industry. Nowadays, we're so used to special effects, it might take us out of the movie a bit.
yeah, I don't know. I will say Tim Burton, the Beetlejuice kind of these days you might look at it and say it's kind of old school, almost hokey special effects or whatever you want to say, but
Yeah,
I feel like that's kind of the aesthetic in a Tim
it is a
Burton
little bit.
movie though.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
it may go with it. It may work. And then of course someone else will try it and they won't be Tim Burton and it won't work. But
Yeah.
uh yeah, I don't there's always this like call like, oh, let's go back to practical effects and when things were real and this that and the other. So it's an interesting experiment if nothing else, and it's
And
a
he's
Tim
the
Burton
person
movie.
I would let experiment with this because I can't imagine another
Right.
director. We're not going to let Michael Bay do this. Could you imagine his practical effects?
Oh
He would just
man.
burn down the studio.
No, no, we need fire, guys. Let's set a
Yeah.
fire. All right,
What
here
if
we
I
go.
throw that car at that car and go? Like, no, no, no. But yeah, I am looking forward to this in a way. And good call out on the fact that Tim Burton's kind of got that hokey because I just watched Big Fish for Challenge Accepted. And I don't know if you've seen Big Fish, but there are some things where like they have this giant in there, which is ridiculously big, so big that it's bigger than the actual actor is, of course, but nevertheless. But then they like push up a house to straighten it up, and you're watching this like that's so like that's ridiculous. But with Tim Burton's feel, it's like oh, okay, this is something different. It's a Wes Anderson type thing where it's like you're watching a Tim Burton movie more than you are watching the movie itself, and
Right.
you suspend
Yeah.
disbelief.
Yeah. I mean, Tim Burton is like an elemental force within the film industry. I mean, he just does things on some sort of different level, that
Yeah.
that it's hard to get to, you know.
The gaming equivalent of that is Bethesda. Like every other studio that comes out with bugs, we get pissed off at, but Bethesda, we're like Bethesda.
Oh man, I'm stuck under the terrain again. Well, let me go see if I can find some trader inventory chests while I'm down here.
You know how many times I've gone to Aquila City and like just taken everything out of that store? You can like go through the puddle and take all the store's stuff. Have you seen that
Wow.
bug?
No, I haven't, but I mean, I didn't know
So
about that one
I
specifically.
go and then I sell it to that store. It's like, hey, while I'm here, let me go grab like 20,000 more dollars or whatever. But yeah, you just like look at this puddle and you like kneel down and you go right into the store's inventory that's underneath it, and you just take it all out.
Wow.
It's like, it's pretty bad.
Which it's, what, we're going to get into Starfield soon, but that's Bethesda doesn't learn or doesn't care about stuff like that,
Yeah, I think a little bit of both.
because it's the same thing in Skyrim.
Yeah.
They're every shop owner just has a chest, and most of them are, at least under the terrain, so you do have to glitch your way to them. But there's like one where, like, if you go, I don't remember what town it is, but it's just like you go behind a bush and look at the terrain well enough, and there's like a little corner of the chest peeking out, and then you can take
Yeah.
all the inventory. You know, so it's funny that, because I have seen a video the Spiffing Brit did, where he was, glitching underneath terrain in Neon and New Atlantis,
Oh,
and
wow.
finding chests for like everybody, and
And
it
then I've been
wasn't
seeing
even
people,
hard.
yeah, I've been seeing people just put buckets on the like person's head, and then you could just take it all, and the person can't see it all, and
Oh
so it's
God.
just, yeah, it's like okay, well that's a different way of sneaking, I guess. Just try to do that in the IRL. Go to Walmart and be like, cashier, put this on your head, take what you want. Oh
Here,
man,
we're doing a prank for a video. Can you put this on real quick?
5 switches, please. All right, moving on to the next thing here in the movies. Guillermo del Toro, it just got announced or revealed during an interview that he has been working on a Star Wars movie. This is going to be focused on Jabba the Hutt. Now, to fill in a little more data on this, it's currently on pause, along with many Star Wars movies. The Kevin Feige one, the Taika Waititi one, they're on pause right now, not only from the strike, but also because Disney's restructuring things. But Kathleen Kennedy, the person in charge of all Star Wars production, has said that it's not off the table. It's still technically in development. So, well, what do you think? Do you think Guillermo del Toro is the right person to make a Jabba the Hutt movie?
I mean, just trying to decide if the world needs a Jabba the Hutt movie.
I don't really
Um,
think so. Like, why do we need to fill in on that guy? He doesn't have. He's a tool more than a character. I think in Star Wars.
yeah. I don't know. Like that, the whole thing just makes me feel weird. Uh, and I mean, I don't know what his most known movies are, but I know he's done Pacific Rim, and Jabba the Hutt's not going to be fighting giant robots. I don't know. Like it would be a challenge because Jabba the Hutt doesn't do anything or go anywhere,
Yeah,
and
I
you can't even understand what he's saying, so, because it's in
right. Yeah, you'd have to have a
Huttese.
version of this. And other Huts do speak English, which is adds to the odd aspects of Jabba. Like we've heard in the video games, other Huts speak English or common or whatever it's called for
Yeah,
them. You know.
you know. I don't know. That's.
I would
I
like
think
to
I'm gonna
see a
pass.
criminal underworld movie that would
Yeah,
be alien based because then I think he's got it because he does really good job with like monster effects stuff like that. So let him create this underworld. But Jabba specifically, I think is a problem. Like maybe Jabba is the boss they have to visit to like get a loan or some whatever. Like have Jabba in there, sure, but don't make the movie about Jabba. He's not interesting enough and he's not practical enough to really do a movie about. It just wouldn't make much sense.
yeah. I mean, where's the? I don't know. Like I don't know whether what the character growth would be, or even when you're watching a movie about a bad guy, right? Like Boba Fett is, at least going into the Boba Fett show, right? I mean, he's the guy who captured Han Solo, so he's
Yeah.
not a good guy. And in the scheme of the viewer, through our lens, he is a villain. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but you can make him relatable enough and understandable enough, that like, well, I mean, he's just a dude trying to do his job,
Yeah,
um, and you can't but be, can't be but so mad about that, uh, and even going back to, right, obviously, Boba's history with the Jedi, he's tried to kill Mace Windu, and for all intents and purposes, he is a villain. But by the end of Book of Boba Fett, you're rooting for Boba Fett.
of
I don't
course. Yeah,
see, like, where
they
does that
redeem him.
happen
Yeah.
with Jabba the Hutt?
There's
Like,
yeah, he gets choked out at some point by one of his slaves. You can't redeem that guy.
yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah, like criminal underworld. There's a lot they could do there. Like with Darth Maul and the Black Sun, Syndicate, and I remember there was, what was it, a movie or a video game or something that was supposed to be like the criminal underworld of Coruscant back in the day, and it ended up getting
That would
scrapped.
be so good,
Um,
man.
like there's plenty of just untapped content there that doesn't, like, can we not be on the outer rim for once?
Yeah.
Like, why are we always in Tatooine and Naboo and these planets that ultimately don't matter, other than
How
that
yeah, how
everyone
is
important is there
Tatooine
for some
the
reason?
Tatooine who has like 3 towns and a bunch of dirt? Like why is that the most important planet in the galaxy every
Yeah,
time?
like, let's have a movie on Coruscant or Corellia, or one of these inner worlds where, yeah, there has to be just a thriving criminal underworld, and
I
see them
yeah.
playing politics and corporate espionage and whatever it may be, like,
I would like Alderaan because then no matter what happens, the planet's going to be destroyed in the future. So any story you have there, like you fall in love with characters, you hate characters, and you're like, oh man, well he's got 3 years, you
that's
know.
fucked up.
But like how think of how it would
That's
change your
so
mood.
bad.
Say watching Game of Thrones, but like for some reason you know that like yeah, but Westeros just gets annihilated in 5 years. So you're like, oh, they're battling it out. Blah, blah, who's gonna rule the throne? It's like, well, they can have a throne. It's not gonna be there for long.
Yeah, you won, buddy.
Yeah, good job. By the
you're
way, that's
the
not a
you're the
moon.
king of Alderaan.
Yeah. But yeah, something like that would be I don't know interesting. I don't know something new.
Better
Star
get a
Wars
good
though,
astronomer.
everybody from every Dave Filoni person's been oh boy, and then we could find out that Alderaan saw it coming, and then they took everybody off the planet. That could redeem it. That might be interesting. Hmm. Dave Filoni hired me to work for you. All right. Let's move over to some gaming stuff here. So the FTC just announced that there's $245 million refund pool for people who play Fortnite and purchase stuff in Fortnite, which that would be me. And this is after a settlement with Epic Games, and a lot of it's because people were, or Epic was kind of making like clickbaity Fortnite buttons. We see it with everything, right? But so you could go. Well, I'm gonna have the links in the description. You guys can go to the FTC website. You have to put in your uh, Epic Game ID, and then you could qualify for some refund. Like for me, I know I bought a battle pass that I essentially didn't use, and so you'll get a portion of the refund for that, and it's pretty cool. Is this going to be a new trend? We're starting to see Europe do this a lot. Do you think we're going to start getting companies having to give some of this money back?
um, you know, I where does, like, I guess, what would you call it? Predatory marketing, or what? Where does, like, the predatory nature of these games end and just
Yeah.
lack of personal responsibility begins?
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
I mean, Fortnite wants you to spend money.
And
It's a
and
free
and there's a lot of
game,
people, including
you know?
myself, that's on board with you spending money. It's
Yeah.
just yeah, we have to. I think things like this, the slap on the wrist, like really is a slap on the wrist for Epic, but um, I think like this will then make it to where in the future they're very clear about the things that you're buying because we know for like in Europe they're making it to where the loot boxes have a percentages on them now where it's like hey you have a 1% chance of getting this thing that you actually do want so that and not necessarily the kids but so generally people will see that like oh okay so I will probably not get this and if you can you imagine going to a casino and like the slot machine's like hey you can play this and win this amount of money but okay yeah you have a 0.3% chance of actually getting it. It might
Right, yeah.
negate you a little bit, or at least you should be a little more educated.
Yeah, no, like, For sure. Like when it comes to loot boxes and things, like things that you pay for, right? Like I mean, there's games with loot boxes, but they're free. You know, you get them for playing the game or whatever. If you're paying for a loot box, you're basically gambling.
Yeah.
And there are rules and regulations related to gambling, you know, that should probably apply. And children shouldn't be able to do it. I mean, you
Yeah.
know,
Totally.
yeah, no, I hate the loot box system, but from a legal standpoint, I could definitely see it, you know, becoming classified as gambling and being subjected to those things. Although that would make those games illegal in certain states and countries, which would be interesting. Which may then force these companies to be like, well, now we have to do something different, which I would be okay with.
Yeah.
But you know, um, yeah, I don't know. I am interested. I haven't looked into the case very much. Uh, you know, like I get it, right? Like we've all been on a phone game and they're like, well, you know what? For $5, you can just have a little subscription. You get all this stuff and it'll make the game so much easier. And you're like, well, yeah, whatever. It's $5.
Yeah.
You know, I
Oh,
don't play
there's so many times
Fortnite.
where I've done
So,
that. Yeah.
you know, I don't play Fortnite. So I don't know if it's like people thought they were getting one thing and then didn't, or they didn't understand the battle pass or whatever. But
That's what
yeah, you know,
triggered
I
the
mean,
FTC is people not realizing what they're getting, and specifically parents. Like the kids would buy V Bucks to buy loot boxes, and then tell the parents like, "Oh, by the way, you know, I had your it was attached to the iPad or whatever," and all of a sudden money is being spent, and then the parents are feeling like there actually is no value to it, which in a lot of ways there isn't, especially for their point of view, and that's what triggers the FTC into looking into this and saying, okay, there was predatory buttons and stuff like that that made it a little too um, addiction of forming, you know, and so that's what it led to.
I don't know. Even that, you know, it's like, why does your kid have access to your credit card or your bank card or, you know, whatever it may be?
Well, that leans into
You know, like,
why do you have to attach your credit card to your app your iPad, because that's what a lot of it happens is from, or
yeah. See, I don't have an iPad. I don't have these
there should
problems.
be a system where that's the same thing for Samsung too.
What? No, Samsung does not have my credit card on this phone.
So you can't,
Boom.
but if you were to buy an app that costs $2, do you just
Well,
sign into your Samsung account, or do you have to
well,
actually
that's
put in your
through
credit card every
Google
time?
Play.
That's what I mean. Okay, so
That's
Google
a
Play is the
different
one
app.
that manages. Damn it. So, but yeah, but
So
Google Play is the one
there's
that manages the
okay.
Fortnite money as well.
So they were basically buying things through the Apple Store.
Yeah, or the Xbox store, same situation, right? It's the store that lets you buy other things, and the kids have such access to it. It's like if they were to like just peruse Amazon, but not like click, you know,
Yeah, I don't know. I
buy.
mean, I feel like that's I mean, obviously that's a challenge for a parent today. And if there aren't restrictions, you know, like on when you go on Netflix, right? You have
Mm-hmm.
different types of accounts, you know,
Yeah.
like the kids level, you know, parental controls, right? So your kid uses their account and they can't watch certain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, or YouTube kids. Like we have these for entertainment. Um there should just be, you know, like on Windows. Well, I don't know about now because I've never had to do it, but I know on older Windows, right? You had profiles.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you could password a profile. And so,
Yeah.
if my mom didn't want me to have access to certain things on the computer, she could put it underneath her profile and then limit the access on a more, you know, public or a profile available to me. Like, why don't we just have the same things for tablets and these devices? Like,
Well, and
why
all
does
of
your
gaming
child
actually.
have so much access to your credit card? Now, I mean, you want to sue Fortnite? I don't really care, right? They got money, but I mean, from a reasonable standpoint, is it really their fault that you gave your kid too much access to your money? And this goes
You're
back
bringing,
to
yeah,
the
you're
same.
convincing me. I'm not gonna lie. You're convincing me your way. Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to when when you used to get, you know, kids cell phones, right? And like a text cost
Oh,
money.
for real? Remember those
You
days?
know,
These kids nowadays
and
don't know that. You used to pay
yeah,
10 cents per text. Yeah.
and then that like $300 phone bill would come in. And you know what? Sometimes you could call the phone company and be like, look, my I
Rarely.
didn't realize my kid was texting so
Yeah.
much, and some of them would help you, but for the most part, you just have to pay that shit
Oh, there's
because
horror
you got
stories.
your
Yeah.
kid a cell phone and you did not t- explain to them the responsibilities involved, and you did
Yeah.
not monitor how much they're texting. So
When I
why
was in
is it
high
the
school, that was a
phone
huge
company's fault?
problem. Yeah, yeah, but I remember that being like a horror story. Like, oh, did you hear about John? Yeah, he was texting too much, $400 thing now, and he's gonna get his ass whooped. That was a thing when I was in high school back in my day, and yeah, I can see that now. And I think that the video game companies, I think the video game industry as a whole should embrace more kid profiles. I want to say the Xbox has something like that, but why is there not a Fortnite kids profile that doesn't let you, because they don't want you to do this, of course they'd rather people accidentally buy stuff, but there should be one that doesn't let you purchase anything until the parent puts in a password, that use the two-factor system, where, oh, you want to purchase this, okay, we're going to send your parent a text real quick, and then if the parent's not paying attention to the text, well, at a certain point you're not doing your job as a parent. Not to be, we're two single guys that are like, or two non-parents that are like
Right? Yeah.
giving you parenting advice, but I mean, come on now. There's a level of responsibility, and I'm not necessarily defending Fortnite or Epic. I do appreciate the free games every Thursday, but we have to also have some personal responsibility with our consuming products and keep an eye on what you, because we're evolving landscape right now. You're millennials out there, or for the most part, you should be well aware of the charges. You've seen them in the past.
Yeah. Now I will say, there's a world that exists, could be this world,
Mm-hmm.
where Fortnite knew that, oh yeah, kids have access to credit cards on tablets and stuff, and we can take advantage of this,
Yeah,
and that's wrong.
I think there's a
If
little bit of
it,
that going on for sure.
and so yeah, I'm sure there is, and that may have been something the FTC looked at, but
Mm-hmm.
I just think it goes back to, in the digital age, one thing, like one pervading thing we've been dealing with is that there's not a lot of standards.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone just, every company is just kind of doing its own thing. Uh, and, there just needs to be, I get it, right? You're a parent, you can't just be like up your kid's ass all day. Like we all have stuff to do. Um, and maybe you don't even realize that all they have to do is press this button, and now that connects to an app that connects to another app. So, I don't
Yeah,
want to be like, you're just parenting bad, but I think that parents should hopefully take a more active role in these products, but also there needs to be standards to protect consumers. Like consumer
for sure.
protections are a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to the internet, we've constantly seen that we've dropped the ball on consumer protections over the internet.
Absolutely, and it's something that's starting to be addressed in certain places. I know California's got a lot of them right now, and matter of fact, we just passed a law. If you live in California, keep an eye out for it. We're able to delete all your personal information across the internet just completely, and so check that out, guys. If you're California residents, it just went into place now this week, so that's something pretty cool. But yeah, in general, yeah, we need to protect our consumers. It's our product. Like really, let's protect ourselves. All right, let's move on to the next topic here. We're getting along in the tooth, so we want to get to the next
Oh
one here.
yeah.
Xbox leaks. I know we're looking for Starfield, but pretty soon. But Xbox leaks right now, and I know you're an Elder Scrolls fan. They just confirmed Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be exclusive to both Xbox and PC, not touching the PlayStation or Switch for that matter. Really, actually. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think one of two things are happening here. Obviously, um, Microsoft is still trying to acquire Blizzard Activision.
It just passed another hurdle where it's like pretty much a guarantee thing now.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Elder Scrolls is a bargaining chip.
So I know Call of
Okay.
Duty has been. Do you think Elder Scrolls 2?
Maybe, they could be like, hey, like there this could be a I mean, it could go either way, right? They could be flexing their muscles, like, okay, that's fine. Like, PlayStation wants to be pissy about
Yeah.
us acquiring, Blizzard Activision. Well, you know what? Hey, look what we can do. Do you really want to make this much of an enemy of us? However,
Yeah.
I think that's a risky proposition because PlayStation can now turn around in court and say, well, look at this big franchise. They're going to be able to point to Starfield sales. which I guarantee are a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
they just passed 10 million players or whatever. 10. It was a lot on the Xbox, so it's that's pretty impressive.
yeah, and so they're gonna be able to point to Starfield sales and be like, look how big this is. And Elder Scrolls is a very established franchise with a lot of fans. Um, they're doing exactly what we told you we were worried they were
Afraid
going
of.
to do.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft turns around and says, okay, well, to show that we're willing to address the fears of, all these government agencies and that we can compromise, uh, we'll go ahead and let Elder Scrolls be on the PlayStation.
Which they've been doing that kind of discussion with Call of Duty. They've offered PlayStation a contract with Call of Duty saying, we promise it'll be on your system for as long as we release Call of Duties. Which, in the grand scheme of things, makes sense because you're selling more Call of Duties, but also I like the idea of it being exclusively Xbox, not only because I like Xbox, and by the way, I own a PS5, so just haters sit back, but also, and I'd buy it on PC anyways, if for being honest. But anyways, but then PlayStation has to come out with a game that's similar and have to be innovative. Like whatever happened to that innovation? Like sometimes when we lose exclusivities, we lose innovation. Like I like that it didn't pan out, but Xbox one time made a game called Rise. It was a Roman based game, but it was clearly, their attempt of making a God of War, the modern version of God of War. And it didn't work, but it was fun. And like, hey, let's just
Yeah.
try it again. It's
Yeah,
fine
it
if we
didn't
try and
compete
fail.
with God of War, but like I've heard good things about the Rise game,
Squeaks freaking loves it. It's one of his favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember there's a what was the game came out like the early 2000s, started a franchise like the guy with like the lightning arms or whatever on
Yeah. Is it? It's
uh
not Inhuman, is it? Or
no. Oh
or
man.
Detroit Become Human or something like that? Maybe.
Let me see.
Googling time.
Guy with lightning arms
It's just gonna tell you, Raiden.
game. I have not. I'm wow. Lightning Man from Serious Sam. No, that's not it. Anyway, so there's a game called oh god, it's like right on the tip of my tongue. Um, there's a game called Prototype.
Right.
That I really like. I thought the first one was great. The second one was kind of okay. Um, but it came out around the same time as this other one where it's a guy who like gets powers with electricity, and so he is running around and he's like uses these like lightning attacks on everything. And he's got like a punch and he shoots lightning, and it turns into like a big lightning hammer and smacks things, right? So
Yeah.
Prototype, yeah, was like their answer to this kind of free roaming guy with sort of mutant powers game. And I like Prototype. um it's almost like Wanted, but not.
Now that you're explaining it, like I'm pretty fucking sure I played this game.
Right, yeah, it's like right there in my brain. I but I can't.
Is it Infamous?
Unleashed. Infamous, maybe. Infamous.
I think it's Infamous.
Infamous game.
No,
Yeah,
that's on
yeah, that's
PlayStation.
the one. Yep, Infamous and Prototype. I
Okay.
don't know which one came first, but one of them was an answer to the other one. And you know what?
Yeah.
I really like Prototype, and Infamous has a lot of fans. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like it spawned two good games, maybe not two good franchises, because
Yeah.
Infamous went on to make more games, and Prototype only made like one more, and it wasn't great. But yeah, like where is that competition?
Yeah.
Um,
Another good example too is Watchdog was an attempt to try to make like Watchdog was Ubisoft's attack on Rockstar's GTA. And while the first one was a dud, the second one was a lot better. And I really like three. It added elements that GTA doesn't have with the hacking and stuff like that. And it's like, hey, we could take the same formula, add new things, and maybe the next GTA will take some of that advice. But yeah, you could use competition to innovate, which is kind of the point. And we're the ones that win out. We could just not buy a game if we don't like it, but we could win out on it. Yeah.
well, yeah, that's like there's a game called Sleeping Dogs,
Oh yeah.
which is it's a
That's
GTA clone.
famously good. Yeah.
But I thought it was great. Like, it's not Grand Theft Auto, obviously, but
Yeah.
yeah, and it as a PC gamer primarily, seeing exclusives was always a little rough because I couldn't play them, but generally exclusives ended up on the PC.
Yeah.
So
It's the middle
PC was
ground.
always kind of winning the game in the end. Now there's
For
always
sure.
been some like infamous for example, I remember like it never came to PC as far as I'm aware.
Hmm.
So there are outliers, but for the most part, like we got a taste of both
Yeah.
sides.
All right, let's look at some of the other leaks here. We have a confirmation through the leaks that Nintendo, this is on Activision side, Nintendo showed Activision the Switch 2 at the end in December of 2022. So now we have confirmation that the Switch is coming. This follows rumors of a behind closed doors showcase at the last Gamescom, which also led to the rumors that Switch 2 is going to be coming in 2024. It's almost confirmed. The next thing, these are just small things that we got to talk about. There is going to be a new Xbox released next year. It's going to be, like when they do the refresh to the current gen. The interesting thing is it's going to be faster, but the same. I'm sorry, faster, but no disc, which sucks, but for the same price. So, and it's currently codename Brooklyn and codename Elwood. So the idea is that, yeah, you're getting a faster machine, but you don't have the disc. And I find that the disc is the way to go because the disc holds value. It's a bit of a collector's item, and that's where you get the really good sales sometimes. Sometimes digital, you just don't get the good enough sales if you're on console, anyways.
Yeah, I gotta
uh,
go to GameStop, get the physical stuff.
it's
And
it's cheap.
I mean, is the current gen Xbox like backwards compatible?
Both will be back. Both are backwards compatible, and the next one will be backwards compatible as well. Or, I
Well,
mean,
no,
I'm
but
sorry.
just.
Correction. Yeah, our terms of backwards compatible are a little different. Backwards compatible, as it uses your entire Xbox library. Uh, the Series X and Series S, I do believe, is backwards compatible in the way you're thinking too for like the most popular games. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, because I know that gaming companies have gone back and forth, like, oh, like I think it was the PS3 could play
Mm-hmm.
PS2 games,
That sounds right.
but which was big, right? I mean, the PS2
Yeah.
library is just too good to not
Oh
be able
yeah.
to play.
Yeah.
Um, but then like PS4 wasn't backwards compatible with either one of them, with the three or the
Yeah.
two or something like that,
And PS5 can only play the top 100 selling games on PS4. It's not fully backwards compatible.
yeah. So I don't know enough about the hardware and the software and whatever. I'm not a gaming engineer or whatever you want to call it, but
What the fuck?
whatever challenges they run into when they're making a new console and why it can't run the old console, which I don't get, right? I mean, they're
Yeah.
basically miniature computers inside, and my computer can play pretty much anything that's ever come out for computer in the history of computers if I want
Well, I
it
think
to,
the
you
problem with the
know.
PS3 was it was the first Blu-ray, and the PS2 wasn't, and so that was difficult for it to move up. I want to say that was the case, but then with like the PS5, the reason it's able to play some of the PS4 games is because it's not. It's saying I own this game. Okay, let me download it real quick from our shop. Then, is all it's really doing.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The whole, I don't know, the whole struggle against backwards compatibility with consoles for me is why another reason I stick to PC. All
Seriously.
my games from 2000, still work. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't have these problems.
Oh yeah, I
But
played that
yeah,
old
like,
school. What's that? Roller Coaster Tycoon from like 2003 or whatever. The
yeah,
best version of
man.
it. I play that all the time. It's a great, great game.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can see if it was no disc but cheaper, they're like,
Yeah.
hey, like we have the technology already, so they're not investing in like R&D of a new Xbox really. They're just kind of tweaking the current one.
Hmm.
Uh, so I could see if it was like, okay, you can have this a little cheaper than the other one. But I mean, same price, no disc. I don't know, just get the other Xbox, I'd say.
Well, what's nice about that too, like the those of us who like the discs are like, oh, okay, so the other ones are gonna go cheaper. Sweet. That's really the deal. Some of the other things here. This is not gonna happen, but Phil Spencer has and still does want to buy Nintendo. He has desires to buy Nintendo. Uh, that's just not going to happen. Like it just wouldn't happen. But it is interesting to think about. You know, it's that was kind of like the bigger. He also wanted to buy Valve, which would be huge for them if they were to buy Valve, and Warner Brothers, which I wanted them to buy Warner Brothers back when it was for sale because then they would get the rights to some of my favorite games, Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War. But that didn't go through. Other things here, some new hardware tech innovations that I've revealed to build, the new controller that'll connect directly to the cloud. We kind of talked about this before, but it was basically confirming that this tech is on the way and it'll be here soon. And then lastly, the thing I really want to talk about here is Red Dead Redemption 2 is getting a remaster. That's confirmed. And then, well, yeah, with that one, have you played Red Dead 2?
I haven't yet. It's one that's been on my list, and I just haven't. I've never got around to it.
Dude, I think you would love it. It is such a good game because I knowing you, you chew through games real fast. You and Kyle are like, man, you guys go through games like a mother. But you also tend to kind of get lost in the world and the narrative in a way that I envy in a lot of times. And Red Dead Redemption did that for me in a way that I just like I think about that story often. I think you would really like it.
I'll definitely have to give it a shot. I think, like the cowboy setting is just not my usual cup of tea, which has
Okay,
always
I
kind
do
of been
enjoy
like,
it.
well, I could play that, but I could play this other thing, which I mean,
Yeah,
unfortunately is often something I've already played. I tend to go back to games a lot in between games.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's definitely one I keep meaning to try and I just don't. But
yeah.
I'll
We're
tell you, I'll
also
I'll do it one of these days.
yeah. I next time it's on sale, I'm gonna hit you up because I think it is worth your time.
All
It's
right.
always on sale nowadays. The other two games that are getting remasters, according to this leak, is Fallout 3 and Oblivion. Now, Oblivion, just a quick side note on this, there's been a mod called Sky Oblivion where they're using Skyrim's engine for it. They said that they're going to continue with that project no matter what, even if there's an official version. But nevertheless, a remaster for Fallout 3 and Oblivion. I personally will be playing both of these 100%. There's no doubt in my mind. Are you gonna grab those two?
So I will 100% grab the Oblivion.
Yeah.
Fallout's debatable. Uh, I'm just not as big of a Fallout fan as I am an Elder Scrolls fan.
You're more of a
Um,
fantasy fan in general, yeah.
yeah, so maybe I'll give it a shot. It's one of those franchises I've tried to get into. In fact, I've played Fallout 3 before, didn't get very
Mm-hmm.
far. Tried New Vegas, didn't get very far. I own Fallout 4, didn't get very far. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't suck me in the way an Elder Scrolls game does. Um, but if they're going to do Fallout 3, they definitely need to do New Vegas because I think, just
you're
talking
right.
to fandoms, New Vegas is like top tier popularity Fallout. If they don't do a
It
New
is.
Vegas remaster that is at least, true to the original, they're really doing themselves and their fans a disservice.
Great point. Yeah, the story for that one is always talked about amongst the fandom. So yeah, hopefully they do that as well. That's a really good one. While we're talking about Bethesda, I think it's time we move into our Starfield review.
Oh
Now
God.
I am about 15 hours into Starfield, and I do play the main mission a lot, but I find myself exploring and enjoying it so much, and in a way that's different than like so Hogwarts Legacy had the same issue, but Hogwarts Legacy, I'm mad at myself that I didn't continue the story. And in this one, I'm like, I don't care. I just like the world. I'm doing side missions, which eventually I will do with them all anyways. So, and of course, I'm like, I want to get the best ship, and I'm like, now I'm hunting this best sniper rifle and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's pretty fun. Now, what are your just initial thoughts on Starfield?
Starfield does a really good job of getting in its own way.
Okay, how so?
Um, I think there's a lot to like about Starfield, and then there's a lot of Starfield that gets in the way of things that I like.
Yeah, for me, I would say it's traversal. I think space traversal, especially, but even when on the ground, there's no vehicles, which Bethesda said they thought about it and decided not to go that way. I do feel like that hinders the game enough to get people to stop playing. Really, I'm now used to it enough to where it's not bothering me, but it breaks the 40-second rule. There's the 40-second rule in all open world games that every major destination needs to be 40 seconds away from another major destination, or else it feels too long to the players. And this one they're saying it's like some of the destinations are 5 minutes away, so it doesn't make any sense. And I think that's hurting it. Do you think that's maybe one of your bigger complaints?
So anytime I talk about a game, there's something important to remember is that there's the way devs think people should play the game,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's the way people play the game. you know?
Yeah.
So Todd Howard has said that no, the lack of vehicles is an issue for me. Um, like I early on, I was like, oh, I can scan things, right? I can survey these planets, I can get experience for it. And so I quickly like dumped a bunch of points, perk points into scanning things faster and further
Yeah.
away. And like, yeah, like I'll just level up this way, like I don't need to go just murder pirates all the time. Although that's fun. But yeah, it turns into, me walking and walking and jetpacking and walking and jetpacking. Um, and once you've been to a handful of planets, they all start to look the same. But Todd Howard was like, well, we don't want them to get places too fast because it's a walking experience, so you can
Yeah.
explore and you can see everything. Okay, but they all look the same, Todd. Okay, there's like 3 different life sustaining planets, and
Well,
then
it's
there's
for podcast
rocky
listeners.
moons.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and I tried to distract myself, like when I play an Elder Scrolls game or a Fallout game, and I'm like, oh, there's a cave over here, let me go explore this cave, right? Because I know there's going to be something crazy to find there, there's going to be loot, there's going to be different types of enemies. The generic like places of interest, POIs, um will literally be the same exact layout
Yeah.
with the same exact enemies in the same exact places.
Or there'll be
So
like a
this
rock structure that
wonderment,
doesn't benefit you in any way. Yeah.
yeah, and then yeah, this randomized gear that sucks.
Mhm.
Which okay, whatever. That's just a Bethesda thing. But this like wonderment of exploration to me feels very skin deep.
Mhm.
Where it's definitely about the missions and the stories, and to be honest, not even the main story. I think the
No,
main
you're right. Yeah.
storyline is the weakest part of the storytelling in this game.
It is only meant to get you to go exploring. I feel like all the side missions are the ones where I'm finding so much interesting story in there. I haven't even chosen a faction yet. 15 hours in, I haven't chosen a faction yet.
Well,
Just because
spoiler, you can do them all.
that is good to know. I didn't know I could join. I thought I had to be either a ranger or I thought for
No,
sure those
I'm a
two.
UC Vanguard, a Freestar Ranger.
Oh shit, I am hella joining them all. I've been
Yeah,
like
you can
really
do it
careful
all.
about that because I don't want to piss off any one side, and so I've been avoiding doing those. But I'm excited to join the Rangers specifically. But I also like the UC. I like New Atlantis, but the Rangers are kind of like their vibe as a faction. So cool. I didn't know I could do that. But yeah, all the side missions have been very exciting to me, and I do like that I'm kind of creating my own story in a way with my ship, my crew, and I'm working on the outpost idea right now, and so. I do like those aspects of it, and that comes from the exploration. But I feel like for sure things are way too spread out, and there's already mods that reduce travel time, and it's pretty bad. Like Bethesda, welcomes mods normally, and they said that they will in 2024. These are unofficial mods. They're still not going to take them out of the game, but they should take the mods and learn from them, and oftentimes they don't do that. That's kind of a big hole for Bethesda.
So one thing that I've always found interesting, going back to Skyrim, there when you go into a town, there's a loading screen. When you go into a cave or whatever, there's a loading screen, and that was fine. I don't think that was really anyone's major complaint, but there was a mod that came out for that. There was basically like a no loading screen mod, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you when you walked into Whiterun and opened the gate opened and you walked into Whiterun.
Oh, that's
You
so
know,
cool.
so it
Yeah.
showed me it's possible.
Yeah.
This can be done. Why
Mhm.
is it not Bethesda that's doing it? You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Why is the open world not open simply because of some artificial limitation that Bethesda has decided is necessary? And that's one of those things that I'm like, how do you guys get in your own way so bad? Right? Like, I
Yeah.
think most people would agree Skyrim's great, but it's little things like that where it's like, but it could somehow be better. And you didn't even learn from that. And
Yeah.
you've
Personally,
now made it even less. It just feels like point and click on a map to go someplace. Like this whole
that doesn't feel
exploring the
very open
universe, it
world.
just
Yeah.
doesn't feel like that at all.
So the most popular mod right now, like I think right now I'm loving Starfield. I love playing it. I love it a lot. By far, the traversal is the only thing I don't like. I think everything else I actually do like. Melee's clunky. That's Bethesda Melee. It's never not been clunky. It is a Bethesda game, very Bethesda, but I'm into it. But I will say the most popular mod is one that lets you just travel from planet to planet comfortably, and like my all my perks for the most part are guns and ships because I plan on being a space pirate for good. So that's my whole plan, and that's what I am. And so I would be a lot more advantageous for me to just be traversing space comfortably and not being like, okay, teleport over here, basically teleport over there. The loading screens are getting in the way. Um, and it's a shame because the rest of the game I'm enjoying so much. And it's a shame that it comes down to me not enjoying that part.
Yeah. I find myself just constantly being pulled out of it, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and they do it to themselves where there's just so many quests, like side quests, and I'm big on I want, it's also an OCD thing, right? So so Bethesda games do a big thing where you go into a town and you're walking around and people say stuff and it
Mhm.
just automatically gives you a quest in your quest log. Well, now it's in my quest log. That means I have to do it. Okay.
Same. Yeah.
Um
And you don't have
so
the option to accept it or not. They're just like, you're walking by.
yeah,
You
like
heard
there
a
are
rumor. You're like,
times.
I'll go back to that rumor at some point, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's times when I talk to someone, they're like, maybe you can help me out. And I'm like, you know what, dude, I don't want to. I got too many quests in my quest log right now.
Yeah.
I'll come back. But then they just give you some. And so those
Yeah.
have to be done. I have to do them. Um, and
So Ubisoft's very good about making sure that like you feel that completion is often like you can complete a zone and it just stays complete. And Starfield, Bethesda in general, but definitely Starfield's a new level of it, where that's not what they want you to feel. They want you to just feel like there's constantly things going on in every zone, which again, if it was easier to be more open world, would be probably a little bit better. But yeah, there's like you can't say that I don't have something to do. I always have something in that quest log because I just happen to hear somebody talk about like a treasure on a moon somewhere. And while that is good for those who like to complete things, which I do have that itch too, it's hard. It is very hard.
yeah, and in a lot of them, it's just so much of run back and forth. It's kind of like when you get to a new town in World of Warcraft.
Yeah,
There's always a couple quests that are like, can you just deliver this package over here? That's
yeah,
like a lot of Starfield's little side quests is
yeah. And the
just
idea is that you're doing those
from
while you're out there too. Like I think that
run from
would make
point A
sense
to point
IRL.
B to point C back to point A. Nothing happens in between except loading screens. And for me, it's like every time the loading screen pops up, or I'm sitting there for 24 hours trying to refresh some guy's inventory
Yeah.
because of another famous Bethesda mechanic that pisses me off. Um, all of a sudden now I'm on Twitter
True.
or
Yeah.
I'm searching through Netflix for something to watch. And, I have technically 200 hours on Starfield already, but a
Jesus
lot of
Christ.
that is the game just sitting there without me actually playing it. And that's a
Yeah.
problem, I think.
That is. All right, let's move on to combat. What are your thoughts on combat? Like I said, melee is definitely clunky, but I am liking the gun mechanics far better than I have, say, like, I think Fallout's also felt a little clunky, but not Fallout. Was it Fallout? Yeah, Fallout. But this one actually feels sharp. It feels closer to the Destiny mechanics, which I think is some of the best shooting out there. Or Division's another good example of that. I'm really liking the mechanics, and I'm also liking the variety in weapons. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think Um, yeah, I like to play melee.
Hmm.
Like Cyberpunk, I go with a katana.
Really?
I
Okay.
yeah, oh yeah, I love the idea of you have guns and I beat you with a sword. You know,
Yeah.
and when you're playing, Cyberpunk, that's why I tend to play fantasy type games. Because there aren't guns. There's bows. Okay, cool. Yeah,
I
you're
see.
shooting
See,
a
that's the
bow.
thing
I
is
shoot a
Oblivion,
bow.
Skyrim. I'm strictly bows, so I'm
Yeah,
always a
I always
ranged guy.
start with a bow.
Yeah.
I like to sneak, things like that. Cyberpunk, I really like how they handled it, where you can go melee and you can just kind of build your character to where, okay, you're not shooting guns, but you're really fast, you're really
Hmm.
tanky, and you go up and you're just slicing and dicing. And the more you slice and dice faster, which means
Yeah.
people die faster.
You're just on a
Like it all
rampage.
builds on itself. It feels really good to
Yeah,
to
that's
do
cool.
it. Um, and and Starfield doesn't have that. Okay,
Hmm.
don't do melee. It's not worth it, guys.
Not at all.
I gave in and I switched to guns, and I've been so much happier after it. Okay, this is Space Cowboy, not Space Ninja. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I mean, as far as an FPS, style goes, I'm having a great time. Obviously, yeah, there's a lot of different guns, and they each can have modifiers that make them very different guns. Like there's one called a mag shot, mag pulse, something like that,
Hmm.
which at its base version, it it shoots like a pistol, right? So
Right.
semi-automatic, the more you click, the more it shoots, but it's like one bullet at a time. And then I got one version it basically turns it into like a machine gun. And so now I have like a pistol machine gun where I would just like walk up to someone and unload like 75 rounds
Jesus Christ.
in like a split second and just melt everybody. But then I ran out of all my ammo, but it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a good time when you figure out what doesn't work. Um, which really, yeah, just take melee out of the game, Todd. Forget about it.
Honestly, though, I don't pick up. I mean, like swords and stuff like that are like really high value. I'll pick up, but I don't use them in any way. So they're all for just gold now at this point. They're just for
I
selling.
mean, put it this way. So I have a gun right now that does over 900 damage per shot. It's a laser
Mhm.
gun. Um, the best melee weapon I have found does 100 damage per hit.
Yeah, and you gotta get close for it.
So I have to go close and like you swing. The swinging animation is pretty much the same time, right?
Yeah,
Like the same time between strikes for pretty much every melee weapon. I can shoot faster than I can swing a sword. Or
it
well, actually,
is.
I have a Varun pain blade, but yeah, I can
Yeah,
shoot. I can shoot a single shot. Like it's like a rifle. Semi-automatic rifle. So it's not like I hold down the trigger and it just keeps shooting. I have to click every time. Um, and yeah, it shoots at a faster rate than my best melee weapon. So like,
yeah,
there's just no reason to use melee weapons.
yeah, and it feels exactly the way it felt when you played Skyrim, Oblivion. Like I don't think melee's ever changed in a Bethesda game. It's always felt the same, which is not good. you know,
I don't know. I
um,
think I think Skyrim does okay. I like to dual wield, and then you get that shout that makes you swing like you're on crack.
yeah.
Um, that was a good time. But yeah, I mean, for sure, it's just kind of, people actually have said that the best way to melee, most fun way to melee in Skyrim is sword and board.
Hmm.
Because I guess there's, just
I've heard it here
mechanics for
too.
blocking and hitting and stuff that make it a little
Actually,
more
mix combos a
dynamic.
bit too. Hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, for the most part, yeah, Bethesda's always been, walk up and swing.
Yeah,
It's
generally.
real great.
So the last thing I want to touch on a little bit of the. I mean, okay, let's talk a little bit about the spaceship combat. I think is pretty solid. I wish there was more of it. Is my only problem, but I think it's pretty fun. What do you think about the spaceship mechanics and controls?
So my only complaint is just tuning. Uh,
Yep.
I can run around on very hard and fight people on a planet, and that's fine. And then I go into space and I get jumped by 3 ships and I have to turn it very easy or I'm gonna get wrecked.
Yeah.
which I've been on. There's a Reddit community Starfield Discord, that I've been on, and this seems to be pretty common. Now, as far as the mechanics themselves, it's what I've actually kind of wanted out of a game for a long time.
Yeah.
I used to play a game called Freelancer, which was just like dogfighting space game. It wasn't trying to be a spaceship simulator where you gotta hit the switches and change, convert the power to the rear shields
It
and
does
all
have a
this
little bit
stuff.
of that though,
A
not too
little bit.
bad.
You can pretty much ignore it though, right?
Once you get a
Like,
good enough ship, especially, yeah.
yeah, it's just not that in depth. Okay, I get in there and I shoot guns and lasers at people, and that's all I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say that, yeah, some of the difficulty tuning is really crazy, especially as you get higher level. If you haven't been focusing on ship perks and buying a better ship and customizing a ship, it's rough out there, man.
Yeah.
Those Crimson Fleet pirates are no joke. Or like, I have the wanted trait, so I'll just like pop into a system and like 4 bounty hunters are there waiting for me, and it's like, oh, okay, well, if I don't hit escape and settings fast enough, I'm screwed, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no,
I
it's
have gotten into
simple
like
and it
loops
works.
where
I
it's like
like it.
I like the loop is where like as soon as you get into a zone, get wrecked, but then like it loads you back to when you got into that zone. So you're like, son of a bitch, I don't have time.
Yeah,
I have gotten
yeah,
stuck in those loops a few times now. Yeah.
yeah. And it's
That's cool.
funny because the one of the game tips is, if you're in a rough fight, grab drive away. But when you try to do that, it
You
says
can't do that.
you can't in combat. So what?
Which it feels like is a thing that they should fix. Like I think that should be an update that they make it to where you can grab away because they do suggest that, and I've actually tried that. And yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
nope, you're in
it
combat.
doesn't
So it's like,
work. What
why
are
are
you
you so
talking about, Todd?
yeah.
Todd Howard strikes
Maybe that'll
again.
be a talent or something that you could pick up where you just drop combat. I don't know. Anyways, let's go ahead and drop a grade on this. What would you grade Starfield? You've got 200 hours into it too. You're perfect for this.
Oh, it's hard, because like I said, there's a lot to like out of it. But I almost, like, if it was a, and I'm sure some people would disagree because they're like, well, what do you expect from a Bethesda game? I actually expect good things from Bethesda.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like bugs, sure, bugs happen. Some mechanics are always shallow. They're trying to do a very, very big game. And some things have to be sacrificed. And Starfield is a very ambitious project. So I try to keep
Yeah.
that in mind. Um, I feel like they could have done better. I still believe the highest I can give it is probably going to be a 7.
A 7.
And
So a grade, yeah, C. Yeah.
having done a lot of the gameplay loop, I mean, that it dropped down pretty low there for a bit.
Yeah.
Doing the new game plus grind, which I think their new game plus mechanic is not doing them any favors.
Yeah. Every suggestion, by the way, guys, is to not go to Game Plus. Every website, everybody's telling you, do not go to Game Plus. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, it really isn't. I did it the 10 times to get all the stuff and upgraded all of my little, space wizard powers to 10. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just really not worth it. Just don't bother. It's just it was unnecessary. But for me, when I was playing it, I just kept having this like thought in the back of my head, well, but what if I do want that power to 10? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, I'm just gonna ignore it. I don't care about it. And then I found out there's like a power creep involved, and my little fucking World of Warcraft brain was like, well, power creep, gotta take care of that. So I
Yeah.
stopped everything I was doing and I did all my new game pluses and my 240 temples, which is a terrible, terrible mechanic, that's really boring, and I just don't recommend it at all. And
Mm-hmm.
once I was done with that and I felt like now I can play the game, and I started getting into all these side stories and the faction campaigns and stuff, it became much better. So if you had asked me like 4 days ago, I probably would have gave it a 5. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of good stuff there. Um, and and hopefully with some quality of life improvements and mod support, um, which I think is also a big fail on their part, is that they're waiting to give mod support. which I don't
Yeah, they're not
understand.
stopping any current mods, but they're also not giving it the full support.
Yeah, which I don't want to deal with Nexus mods. Like I want
Yeah,
to go to my Steam workshop, hit the subscribe button, and just have a mod,
yeah.
or the little thing on Skyrim. So yeah, it's between a 6 and a 7, but I'm gonna be good and give them a 7
Okay, for myself, so 7 is a C.
with an
So for
asterisk.
myself, I'm gonna go C plus on mine, and that's for somebody who's 15 hours in. So obviously different spectrums on this. I'm going C plus, but a strong C plus. I am having a lot of fun, but so like personally, I'm having like a B plus worth of fun, but I'm recognizing a lot of flaws that I know are bringing the game down. So I have to personally give it a C plus myself. But I am having a lot of fun though. I mean, it is the game that I'm wanting to play, which is always nice. Sometimes games I feel like I need to play. This I'm actually wanting to play, and that's
Oh,
can't complain.
and here's a side thing. So this one happened to me yesterday, right? And this is another example of Bethesda did something really, really well and then fucked it up. Okay. um, so there's just this little random side quest in the Ryujin Tower, which is a side campaign, so it's like a side quest of a side quest. Um, and it's this guy, he lost his disc or whatever, his slate they call it, and you got to go, to the the slums of Neon,
Mm-hmm.
to get it, to find it. And apparently, it got picked up by a homeless girl, and she is one of the most interesting characters in the game, hands down. Right?
Yeah.
She is super cheerful, right? And she talks about losing her quote spreadsheets, and if you can get her spreadsheets for her, she'll give you the slate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, okay, cool, and you go and you get in their napkins with like a ledger written on them. So she's keeping track of like how many credits she got, panhandling, and how much she spent and how much she has left. So this homeless, I don't know, girl, lady, like I don't know how old she is, but she seemed, young, but at least an adult, over 18, probably for legal reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in the game. But yeah, so it's like this young woman is keeping track of her credits, on napkins, and you come back to her and she's like, oh, thanks, and I, there's an option to ask, like, why are you doing
Mm-hmm.
this? She's like, well, like you gotta act like the fancy people to become a fancy person one day, basically, or something to that effect. And you have the option to give her 25 credits. So like, yeah, give her 25 credits. You're like, this girl's like, she's a great character, she's written really well. And then when you try to give her 25 credits again, because at this point I'm a millionaire in the game, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
25 credits is nothing. And she says, oh no, you already gave me credits today, I wouldn't want you to go poor. Like, you're being too generous and I can't
Yeah,
accept it. Like, and I was like, let me invite this girl to my crew, put her in an
that's what I would want to
outpost,
do right
give
there.
her a home. And you
Yeah,
can't. There's no interaction beyond this. So
that's too
you
bad.
gave me, honestly, one of the most interesting characters I've ran into, because honestly, every character, for the most part, is very, very archetypal, basic bitch characters, right?
Yeah,
There's almost zero surprises. You know what you're getting into, right? And this is one of the most interesting ones, and she's completely irrelevant after this quest. And I just think that's really sad. Like, you
that's
could
too
have
bad.
done so much more with her and made the player feel like they have agency in the universe. And you didn't. You wrote her and then you let her go.
Yeah, Bethesda. I mean, come on now.
Why? What
that's
are you doing,
that's
Bethesda?
too bad. Yeah. All right. So let us know, guys, what you guys think about Starfield if you're playing it and how far you've gotten. I don't know if anybody out there has gotten 200 hours in, but let us know what you think. And like personally, I'm enjoying it. But yeah, for the rest of Geek Freaks, guys, by the way, we have Outlast Podcast just had their season premiere, season 9 premiere. Who's Got Next Game podcast? They have 2 more episodes that didn't release with the main first season because we forgot about them. They were the live episodes, so they were off to the side. So those are releasing. I'm currently mastering them. They're harder to master because they're live. But their season 2 is already recording. So and it sounds great, guys. And so yeah, and Challenge Accepted has got Big Fish just came out. Make sure you guys check that out. All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Thank you very much for hanging out with us. Bye.